What's up everybody and welcome back to the channel. With the release of Season 1 for the First Descendant, the void shard economy in the game has slightly changed, and I think we're starting to move closer and closer to the idea that the developer has for this particular loop in the game. So of course, I think everybody's familiar with the general setup. Basically how it works is it all starts out with you essentially doing an outpost, and these outposts will reward patterns. Now these patterns can always be unlocked or decoded or transformed or whatever you want to call it, redeemed at the local fusion reactor on that planet or in that region usually. And of course that requires a currency, which is where void fragment towers come in, because essentially you do these with a matching element descendant and then you obtain a certain amount of these void shards. Now previously the amount of void shards was different to this, so it was less than this, and it was also not exactly organized that the void shards that you got from a specific void fragment tower necessarily matched the void shards of the reactor that you were doing. In some cases it was, in some cases it wasn't. Basically the overhaul in Season 1 now means that we have this amount that essentially drops from here. You have a majority amount, like in this case inorganic, and you have a minority amount, in this case organic, so 45.9. And then when we look at the reactor, you'll see that its cost is a flat 45. So the majority of whichever void tower is closest to it or in its sector is then used to pay for this, and you essentially in a way score this 9 organic or the minority amount to be used elsewhere. Now basically you'll see that it's almost like a one, well not almost, it's a 1-to-1. So whichever is the majority one that you get, like in this case here 45, is exactly what you'll spend over here. So the loop then obviously is that you go ahead and you start out by doing an outpost. At these outposts you get patterns. If you do it with Sharon, you have additional chances at some other patterns as well. And then you go ahead and you go do one of these bad boys, so you have enough currency to essentially do the reactor once, or you do it a bunch of times, and then you essentially take your butt over to the reactor, you kill the boss, and then you pay to decode the pattern. So the loop is a lot more, I would say, organic, pardon the pun, right now, and flows a lot better, I would say, in terms of like the fact that you have exactly enough for one run, and you can essentially then just kind of like run it in rotation like this, or you can do pretty much what I do, and that is that you sit on the outpost for like a while and get yourself like 10 patents, and then you go ahead and you go farm out like 10 patents worth of your void shards, and then you sit on the reactor and you just pump out like 10 kills and kill the enemy. I mean, 10 is an arbitrary number, you can do however many of those that you want. Now previously I released a video where I essentially collated all of this information and showed exactly which void shards came from which towers and so on, and this was essentially this old one, right? So here we have the old values on and everything like that, and we also saw that some of these towers actually awarded you a little bit of each one of the 4 different kinds of void shards that you get. So I've now updated this information, and of course this file is shared in the description of this video, so you can also just go and check this out and have a copy of it for yourself. But this has now been updated with all of the void shards, so you can see that basically it's unified across the board. So in the cases of it dropping 2 kinds of void shards, like the one that we were just looking at now in Kingston, you can see that the majority is always 45 and the minority is always 9. And then in the case of the ones which, because we do get them still, that drop all 4 kinds, this has been increased quite nicely, I gotta say, to 15 per, and that actually makes these relatively good if you can do them very fast, because you're getting 15 of each one. And some of these, like I said, can be done very, very fast and very, very efficiently, especially if you have multiple people working on it. And this is just a really, really good way for you to just stock up on a bunch of void shards. Of course, void shards as a whole, the drops in things like special operations and stuff like that has also been increased. So it's starting to become progressively more and more of a lesser problem to actually have these shards, and to then basically use this gameplay loop as an alternative to actually fighting the void intercept bosses, which was always the idea. Basically you choose whether you want to do it this way, or you go and you do infiltrations and you take those patterns and you go kill the void intercept bosses that correlate with them, and you get your drops that way. So I like the fact that we have 2 different ways of doing it here. In some cases though, you are forced to either get it from here or either get it from a void intercept boss, but generally speaking it offers you the choice and allows you to play the way that you want to play. And I really like that though, because the point is sometimes you don't feel like doing void intercept bosses, or you might not have a build that's strong enough to do it, but this gives you another opportunity, or just another way to play. Maybe you're tired of killing the devourer over and over and over. But as I said, this file is available in the description of the video. Feel free to use it, and thank you very much. And that then brings us to the end of this video. Thank you so much for watching, especially if you made it this far. Let me know in the comments down below if there's any other stuff that you'd like me to add to the file. I'm constantly adding more tabs with more information. I've got a whole bunch more things that I'm working on over the weekend, but you might mention something that I can bump to the top of the list and get into the file as soon as possible. Other than that, happy grinding, and as usual, it's super important to me that you have a fantastic morning, afternoon, evening, wherever you are in the world. Till next video, fucking cheers.